let's get into some suburbs. Now, don't hate me for this, people, but I'm telling you right now, if you go to my previous Newcastle episodes, you will see how much some of these markets have already moved. I was talking about this for at least 2 years now. I haven't really been doing it for 2 years, but I've been talking about this for close to a year and a half now, to be transparent with everyone. And I was mentioning suburbs that I said, well, I even remember saying for under 800K, I remember saying the same one for under 900K, and it just doesn't exist anymore. So the first suburb I'm going to get into is a suburb for under 800K doesn't exist anymore in the suburbs that I buy in, unfortunately. It is under 900K now, and that suburb is Mayfield West. Now, if you want to go back in time, you can fact check me on this. Look at my very first episode of Newcastle. I was saying under 800K for this, believe it or not. That is not achievable anymore for the right dwelling. It is now under 900K. So Mayfield West, like you can see in this photo, is basically home to a lot of your original, should I say, weatherboard cottages. A lot are actually on fairly decent blocks. So to give everyone an idea, Newcastle's inner west is, and a lot of inner Newcastle is similar to Sydney's inner west, inner east, or lower North Shore. We have, when I say lower North Shore, I mean the really inner lower North Shore. We have miners' cottage kind of blocks. So they're generally anywhere from, should I say, probably about 280 to 350 metres squared. Mayfield West sometimes does have blocks that are kind of 400 metres squared or so and above, so it is rare for that. You do get the weatherboards and your brick veneer homes as well. Look, something about it is this area is gentrified incredibly over the long term. So 2006 on the left, 2021 on the right. Personal family and household income top to bottom, it's literally not nearly, it has more than doubled in all of them. Importantly on that, you'd want to look at the personal income. It's very important for long-term rental yields, because if people can afford to pay more for dwellings, rent can go up, and if they have higher personal income, despite dwellings sometimes being smaller, so you might have, for example, a block developed into 3 townhouses. If the personal income's high and there's townhouses of 2, the rent is still going to be high because people can afford to pay it. So demographics are extremely important, particularly personal income, when you look at suburbs that are gentrifying. And it's not because of necessarily capital growth, that is a part of it, is especially because of the long-term rental growth. That is another really key important thing. So Mayfield West, under 900K is my pick. Look, I got one here under 950. I previously said, to give you an idea, this is under 850 over a year ago, and I said this to people so many times and not many people wanted to listen. The ones who did have absolutely cleaned up in saying that. I had clients even buying in the best streets, literally, of the suburb for literally, now I won't say under 850. I did have clients buy for under 850 here in some of the better streets, but I had 2 clients literally buy in the second best street of the whole suburb for literally, I kid you not, literally under 900 grand in between 850 and 900 grand, and they have probably made $200,000 in 1 year. But the suburb that's now under 950 is Mayfield. This I expect, mind you, by my next Newcastle episode to not exist anymore. It will be under $1 million by my next Newcastle episode. So like you can see here in this photo, look, Mayfield, particularly certain parts of the northern pocket, are completely gentrified. You have old miners' cottage, sort of village-style properties that are completely renovated, very well maintained. It's a very house-proud kind of area. Beautiful tree-lined streets, full of families as well, particularly quite wealthy professional families and younger families with a bit of money coming in. So that's what's really common in Mayfield. And look, you're going to find things like this as well. Newcastle's, I call it, look, Newcastle's new CBD and gentrifying centre. So in this article, this is just from a local newspaper. You'll see coming full circle, Newcastle's urban revival. You'll see here, Mayfield history buff Hugh Campbell on the suburbs journey from a gentrified rural haven industrial powerhouse and its latest resurgence is an enviable lifestyle location. So you'll see here just in the bottom paragraph, my own love affair with Mayfield finally began when my current partner and I quit how unfair the judgment had been. Today Mayfield with its tree-lined streets full of certainly become a desirable lifestyle suburb. it's fascinating. History makes a for riches to rags, rags to riches kind of yarn. So a lot of people historically won't like Mayfield. They'll say a lot of crap about it, but I'm telling you right now, it is not the same as what people were talking about 20 and 30 years ago. It's a long time ago, and it's very different to today. This area is like some parts of your Lilyfield and Roselle probably 20 years ago, to give you an idea. That's what it's like. There are a lot of wealthier families moving in here, and it's completely changed the dynamic of the suburb. You don't have a dodgy neighborhood anymore. Only in some pockets are bad, but even those pockets are even starting to gentrify as well. So your best pockets are incredible here now. So Mayfield is my pick under 950,000. That number is shrinking by the day, to give you an idea. Next suburb I want to go to, under $1 million, and this is a complete market anomaly, I'll tell you right now. That suburb is Islington. So to give you an idea, I'd argue Islington, some parts of it are even better than some parts of Tyersall, better than some parts of Hamilton, better than some parts of even Maryville, and definitely better than a suburb as a whole than Mayfield East. I'll tell you that right now. And he's still picking up some dwellings here for under $1 million. Now, that number, I'm telling you right now, will be under 1.1 by the next time I air this episode, because people are picking up on it. Maybe, yes, you can hate me if you want for it, but maybe some people watching my episodes enough and seeing that. Look, Islington's full of dwellings, small cottages similar to this, but Islington really is, to give you an idea, it's kind of Newcastle's Newtown. So Newtown in Sydney, it's probably the Fitzroy probably of Melbourne, similar to that. You maybe Geelong west of Geelong, it's similar to probably your West End of Melbourne, your Mount Lawley of Perth. So, I mean, you have a lot of things like this here. So you can see just really gentrified sort of boutique stores, close to the station, very walkable kind of neighborhood, quite small streets and hard to get a park, mind you, around there. A lot of alternate shops, or antique stores around there too. A place where a lot of people kind of go to, be about and that kind of thing. That street that you can see where the white van is turning down is basically goes on across the railway line to Beaumont Street, which is your walkable kind of high street kind of style top end of Newcastle, should I say. All the restaurants, cafes are there pretty much in a very small proximity. It's all heritage protected, so that's always going to be there. But Islington as well, it's like 3.5 to 4 maybe K away from the CBD. It's on the train line, affected by everything, affected by literally the 5% deposit, it's affected by the transport orientated plan, affected by the low to medium density housing plan as well. And you're going to get a lot of people flocking into this area. If you can pick this up below $1 million right now, you are doing incredibly well. I think it's going to be under 1.1 million by the next time I air an episode. Exceptional location, exceptional, should I say, forcing behaviours by the government behind this suburb, and very good demographics here too, even better than Mayfield, to give you an idea. So that's my pick under $1 million for Newcastle, to give everyone some transparency on that. Look, for under 1.2, I'm very close again, and no one's going to be surprised by this, because everyone knows who watches my episodes. I stick to what works. I don't try to be fancy and a hotspot. I don't do that. I'm not a hotspotter. I'm someone that buys your consistent blue chip asset at the right time, and I'll pick the right price points depending on how the market has performed. Now, under 1.2 million, my pick is Maryville. Now, Maryville and realestate.com.au will say like 1.1 or something, or 1.15, or maybe even less than that. That's complete bullshit, and I'll tell you why it's bullshit. The reason it's bullshit is because those data graphs and that data is too slow to the market. It's about 1.2 to 1.3 at the moment. You can still scrape 1.2 in the right street. And Maryville is full of different parts of the suburb. So you got two distinctive parts. You got one part that is the industrial part, and the small part that neighbours the waterfront. Those aren't areas that I buy. And the part you want to buy in is the residential tree-lined streets, like you can see in this actual photo here. That's the parts you want to buy, particularly the long tree-lined streets. That's where everyone wants to live. People do not want to live in the industrial area of Maryville. I'd argue the tree-lined streets probably have a median of 1.3 million, to give you an idea at the moment. There was a house that sold that was completely unlivable, very similar to one that I've been involved in buying in that sold for 1.325 million, you'd probably need to spend at least 100 grand to make it livable. So that other dwelling that I'm talking about would have to be worth 1.5 to 1.6 million minimum at the moment, right? So Maryville, to give everyone an idea, its location, as you would understand, is exceptional. And the demographics, I mean, it is literally 3.5K from the CBD. The demographics there are also exceptional. So this is one of the suburbs in Newcastle that has median income, weekly household income above $2,000 a week. And that's census 2021 statistics. So that number's higher today. Now, if you want to look here, this is just from SQM. You've got your New South Wales average, then your projections of the postcode. 2293 is only Maryville and Wickham, to give you an idea. And Wickham has an apartment area where a lot of people are poorer that live there. So this would be higher if you take it for the part I'm talking about. But you look at the projection and where it's going. 2026, even higher above the state average than where it is today. And you can just see the gentrification. In the early 90s, it was well below the state average, and now it's well above. It's only going further. And what I'd say is the reason Maryville is going to be extremely expensive in the long term is because it's going to be pretty much your first whole suburb, particularly certain parts, but you could argue the right part of Wickham as well, that is going to be right next to where the transport orientated plan and the Wickham master plan is going to be, which is going to make it the first family orientated suburb west of the CBD that is quiet. It's going to be the very first one. Now, if you look at Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, anywhere like that, if you look at the closest suburb that is a family orientated area that has detached homes and wealthy people do live, I'll give you examples. Brisbane's New Farm, which is the most expensive suburb of Brisbane. Sydney would probably be, you'd probably argue it would be Paddington, but I'll go west of the CBD now. It's probably, I'd say, Birchgrove or Balmain by way of the way the crow flies. If you go west of the CBD, if you want to go to Brisbane on the cheaper end, which would be the inner east, it would probably be your East Brisbane, maybe Seven Hills, maybe your Norman Park or Hawthorn. They're all very expensive as well. In Melbourne, if you go west of the CBD, it would probably be I'd say maybe your Yarraville, maybe your good pocket of Footscray, but Footscray's a little bit different. Maybe your Yarraville would probably be, which is also one of the most expensive suburbs right next to the CBD. Maryville is the equivalent of all of these suburbs, to give you an idea. And you're going to get a lot of wealthy families will buy here and they will not sell. They will hold it pretty much 20 and 30 years, and it will only sell if they're one of the 3 Ds: divorced, deceased, estate, or dumb. That's the only reason you'll get sales here. And that's going to be Maryville. So it is my favourite suburb for under 1.2 if you buy in the right area. So that's my pick for under $1.2 million. 2-1. Let's get it under 1.5 million. And the suburb I'm going to mention is Cooks Hill. Now, it's actually going to be, believe it or not, affected by that 5% deposit scheme, which is incredible because it shouldn't be affected by that scheme, but it is going to be. It's just they bumped it up too far. Now, Cooks Hill itself is literally, I kid you not, literally a K from the CBD, even a couple hundred meters from the CBD. And it looks similar to this. It's very similar to Surrey Hills in Sydney, a lot of alleys similar to this. But the biggest driving factor behind Cooks Hill is its walkability. So you'll just see here, you can see that, I mean, you've got obviously Newcastle the hill, and then Cooks Hill just behind it. That's your walk score at 89 out of 100. So it's a walker's paradise, basically. So you don't even need a car to live here. It is right next to Newcastle Beach, right next to Bar Beach, right near Merriweather, right near the CBD, close to Hamilton. You can get anywhere from Cooks Hill. You have a very wealthy demographic that generally live around Cooks Hill. And not only that too, I'd say it is one of the suburbs where they will not sell, and in the right property, the right street, is going to be very hard to pick up a dwelling. You have very wealthy people living in the gross, not gross land supply, the gross land value and the net land value is so high. And it has one of the highest land values in all of Newcastle too. And it's so scarce. Like the price per square meter here is so expensive that, I mean, it would borderline similar prices to literally some suburbs within 15K Sydney CBD. So under 1.5 million, my pick is Cooks Hill. To give everyone an idea, it is going to be very hard to pick it under 1.5 million at the moment for the right dwelling. So you need to probably move fast. It's probably not going to be under 1.5 to 1.5 million the next time I make an episode here, because there's so much demand here. There's so little supply and people know about this suburb. So just to keep an eye on Cooks Hill under 1.5 million. That's my pick in Newcastle. Let's get to the very top end for any budget. And unsurprisingly, I'm saying the same thing I said last time, and that is a suburb called The Hill. So to give you an idea, The Hill is a suburb that literally is about 2 to 2.5 million. It is quite variable depending on where you look. It's about 2.2 in my eyes at the moment. So it is expensive, but The Hill really is comparable to somewhere like Bellevue Hill. It looks like this. So it looks literally over all of Newcastle, the beaches and everywhere you need to see in Newcastle. You can see out to Stockton and towards Port Stephens, and right down to kind of Dudley and, should I say, Swansea there too, and Lake Macquarie. Really, it is similar to Bellevue Hill in Sydney. It is the most wealthy suburb by far, I'd say, along with probably Merriweather and Bar Beach of Newcastle. The Hill is kind of a spot where all your wealthy people historically also used to live. So it's very actually hard to, should I say, pick up good properties here. There are some properties on the terrace here that actually sell for above 4 million. I've seen ones even here sell for above 6 and 7 off market, which you don't see online. It's because very high profile people actually live in these areas. So anyway, that's The Hill, but the reason for that is, look at its just proximity to everything. So this is just Google Maps image of it. There are literally some places in The Hill that are literally 100 meters from the Newcastle CBD. Other parts are 150 to 200 meters literally from Bar Beach. So, and it's in the most in-demand part of all of Newcastle. Very hard to find stock here. You often find that even on realestate.com.au, it won't actually show the prices similar to Bar Beach, because there hasn't even been enough sales in a year to actually formulate a relative price guide for it. So it's one of these areas where you really need to know the value of the suburb, because if you don't, what will happen is that you won't know how to price things properly, and you'll probably pay well over it because you don't know how to price things properly. So that's just something about The Hill that you need to be really careful of. You really need to know what you're talking about. It is so tightly held that it's so hard to find a good property for the right price here. But anyway, that is definitely by far my pick of Newcastle for any budget. It is definitely The Hill.